Hello and welcome to this special edition of Making Moves. I'm Donna Deegan. As you can see, we're not in our usual Studio 1V. Instead, we are right here at JTA's downtown location where we will take a look back at some of the major news stories to come out of the authority this past year. Now, everything from route optimization to the new First Coast Flyer and everything in between, we'll be taking a look at all of that, and the entire Making Moves team will join me just a bit later to talk about their favorite moments of 2015. But first, I recently sat down with JTA Chief Executive Officer Nat Ford to talk about what he called one of the most transformative years in the agency's history and to look ahead at the challenges of 2016. I don't really know how you can do better than you did in 2015, the most transformative year that JTA has ever had since it's been providing transit. I mean, truly a transformative year. I mean, what have you learned from that?
Few things. One thing is that the team of individuals we have here at the JTA are, I think, best in class. I think they're very dedicated, they work well together, and they like challenges, they like solving problems. And so it's been an exciting year because we've got a great team of folks here. We have a good vision, we have a really strong vision in terms of the JTA and improving the quality of life here in Jacksonville and Northeast Florida. I guess this past year is just emblematic of that success, and we're just very excited. We're very happy and proud with our performance in this past year.
Well, you certainly should be. I think you've won every award out there that could possibly be won. At the end of the day, this is always about the customer.
That's right, and so we get a chance to see almost every day the impact that we have on the citizens of this community, helping them get to work, helping them get to the doctor, helping them go to entertainment complexes and enjoy themselves. It's really a great time for us.
Well, and I think if you're really trying to get people's attention in a system that some may have said was sort of stuck in a certain place for a while,
yes,
it's great to get some of those things accomplished quickly. And I remember I was so surprised to read that you actually had a situation where I guess there was some sort of recruiting firm that someone was told, if you put down JTA as your transportation to work, you're not going to get hired, and you sort of took that as a personal challenge.
I did. I did, along with the executives and managers and the rest of the JTA family. We took that on as a personal challenge, and I recall, as I was going around and meeting a lot of the staff here at the JTA, I repeated that story and shared that with them. And I think for all of us, it was an eye-opener in terms of being portrayed as a barrier to someone being able to get a job and be gainfully employed and support their family and things of that nature. And so I think we all took that personally, and it's a story that I've shared numerous times with our team, and I think it continues to inspire us from where we were at that point about 3 years ago to where we are today, and being seen as now one of the best-in-class public transportation agencies in this nation. And so it's real for us.
Remind people about really what brought us from that. The route optimization was a big deal, and it really helped you to give people the confidence that these routes are going to run on time, or as close to on time as you can reasonably expect.
Exactly. I mean, that was a major gamble in terms of the route optimization, because it's the reason things like that are not done, because it's so risky and so challenging to take a system, in our case, that has been in place 30 years. A lot of our riders grew up on that system from being a little child to an adult, and so they're very familiar with the way that the system operates, even if it's not on time and it's inefficient. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of our riders had come to accept that quality of service. But that wasn't good enough for us, and we took the challenge on to improve that system. So totally revamping the bus stops, the routes, increasing the frequency of service, expanding the hours of service, so we better matched up with not the workforce of years past, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but almost a workforce that works 7 days a week, late into the evenings, on Saturdays, on Sundays. And so when we took that challenge on, and I think the hard work of educating our riders, educating the elected officials, working with our board of directors, getting their confidence and the elected officials' confidence to move forward with such a major, dramatic change, we're just so ecstatic about it. I mean, ridership is up 6% over last year. We've gotten, like you mentioned earlier, we've gotten some national awards, local awards, because one, the courage we had to do this.
Well, I think so many companies could take a page from the way that you did this, because it's so important if you're going to make a change that big and you're really going to change hearts and minds, you know, about the system, to really educate. And by that, I mean, you really took your time having these community meetings, making sure people had time to give their input.
Yes, that was critical. You know, our riders, obviously, our customers on a daily basis, the stakeholders, everyone from the religious community who clearly are leaders in our community, the elected officials, business leaders, both large businesses, small business, the medical facilities, the hospitals, et cetera, the universities. We made sure that we got everyone under our tent, explained to them why this change was necessary, tried to really explain to them how dramatic a change it was going to be, but built some trust. And I think, you know, what's interesting now, it is not being seen as just a revitalization or modernization of the JTA. It's being touted as a change process that any corporation may benefit from. And it's my understanding that Flagler College down in St. Augustine is using our business case to teach public policy students on how to affect change in communities. So it has created a culture of champions and winning here at the JTA. We feel that if there's a challenge out there that's transportation related, and maybe beyond that, we can take it on and we can be very successful at it.
Another huge change this year has been the arrival of the compressed natural gas buses. Talk about CNG and why that's such a big deal for the JTA.
I'll tell you, timing is everything. We were in the process of developing and building out the First Coast Flyer bus rapid transit system, which is our premium service and will be expanded to 57 miles of bus rapid transit in our network. We thought it was the appropriate time to make a modification and a change in technology, to go away from the clean diesel buses we run at this point, to look at compressed natural gas buses. So while we were doing ROI, we were also building First Coast Flyer, we needed to make that decision in terms of a transition in terms of our bus fleet and that technology. So right now we're running 22 compressed natural gas buses, 11 of them dedicated to First Coast Flyer. The remaining buses are going to be expanded throughout our entire bus fleet. But this is a 5-year program, 100 buses that will be converted to compressed natural gas.
Talk about the Flyer service, because that's a pretty exciting thing.
Right, so the North Line is the first of 4 lines that we're building for bus rapid transit here in Jacksonville. We will be next building the Southeast Line, followed by the East and the Southwest Line, giving us 57 miles of bus rapid transit. The buses are new technology, compressed natural gas buses. We have real-time passenger information at each of the bus stops along First Coast Flyer, uniquely branded with that First Coast Flyer logo. So it'll be easy for people to know where these buses are starting their trip and where they're ending their trip. And then Wi-Fi, so you're able to get on the bus and be very productive by using free Wi-Fi on these buses. We eventually plan to expand that to the entire system, but we wanted to start it out with the First Coast Flyer, and again, another transportation improvement for our community in helping people get to their destinations faster, quicker, more direct.
We kicked off JTA Mobilityworks in 2015 with some major projects still to come.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about what's to come with that, and how unusual it is for a transportation company to really be involved in all this road building in addition to transportation.
Yes. So interestingly enough, our pedigree came out of the Jacksonville Expressway Authority, and we then assumed the public transportation elements, the bus operation, in the 70s. So our background has been in road building. We did a lot under Better Jacksonville plan, and that had waned for the JTA. The economy had a lot to do with that. And now with the extension of the gas tax, Mobilityworks is up and running. We've got a few projects under construction right now. Gervin Road expansion, Sutel Transit Hub is being built. And then we have Mobilityworks, which were a set of corridor improvements where we were getting in and doing sort of storefront to storefront or doorway to doorway improvements where we would come in and do a sidewalk improvement. We'll do a bike lane. We'll also do the transit component in terms of the bus stops and bus shelters, as well as roadway resurfacing. So sort of a A to Z, top to bottom kind of overhaul of corridors. And that work is well underway. So we're really excited about Mobilityworks' 5-year program. Challenge is, some of these projects were pretty dated. They date back almost 10 years in some cases. And so we're finding some challenges in terms of, again, as time goes by, the cost of materials, the cost of engineering and design work and things of that nature. So we have our budget. We're going to try and stay within that budget in terms of delivering these projects. But we've solved other challenges. We'll find a way to solve these challenges also.
I think one of the most exciting projects coming up is the design competition for the new transit facility in La Villa. Talk about that.
Yeah, so as part of the Regional Transportation Center program, we've already awarded the construction manager contract that's going to Balfour Beatty, so they will be doing the construction management. But then there's the design of this facility that will be here for the next 50 to 60 years, the Regional Transportation Center itself. And so we plan to have a design competition where we will have different designers present their vision of what this Regional Transportation Center needs to look like. And through that design competition and our budget, staying within budget, we'll make a decision on what should be an iconic regional transportation center for this city and the doorway, the gateway into this city. And we're very, very proud of having this opportunity to work on a legacy project.
It's fun to listen to you talk about these things because it's so obvious to anybody that listens to you talk that you truly enjoy the challenge of all this. I mean, you have run much larger transportation systems, but this transportation system really had some very unique challenges, but you seem to really enjoy it.
Oh, I'm thoroughly enjoying my time here in Jacksonville and being at the helm of this organization. I got a great team of people that I work with every day, and I love this community. And these are, again, at this juncture, these are projects that are really impacting the quality of life here for our citizens, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. And so it's exciting time, and I'm challenged every morning, and I am excited about getting up every morning and getting back at these opportunities.
Well, we hope you'll be with us in Jacksonville for a long time. Nat Ford, thank you very, very much, and have a wonderful 2016.
Thank you.
Buying a bus pass has never been easier than with the new MyJTA app. Now you can pay for your next ride right from your phone or other mobile device. Just download the free MyJTA app from your phone's app store and you're ready to go. Use the drop-down menu to select your fare and pay by using Visa, MasterCard, or Discover. Your pass purchase confirmation is sent directly to your email for quick boarding. It's that easy. The MyJTA app. Transit for a modern world.
Don't be a distracted driving casualty. Keep your cell phone in your pocket.
Welcome back to Making Moves. It's time once again for another edition of our Reporters Roundtable. And joining me now are our fantastic team of reporters. We have Terry Casey, Eugene Lindsay, and Carell Danzy. Good to see all of you. Happy New Year. Great to have you here.
Happy New Year to you.
And as we just recapped with Mr. Ford, 2015 was really quite the year at the JTA. The three of you got to tell many of the stories, many of the things that happened here at the JTA over the year. And we had hero drivers. We had construction startups, we had awards and more awards. We had electric cars and a whole lot more. There was really the big four that really took precedence over everything else. We had ROI, CNG, First Coast Flyer, and of course the Skyway. All of these huge stories in 2015. I'm going to start with you, Eugene. What of those stories or anything that we covered resonated with you the most?
Oh yeah, of course. I think Mr. Ford used the word transformative year, and when we talk about the transformation with the ROI initiative, that was the catalyst that got this whole engine rolling, if you will. And when they started the whole ROI process, I mean, there was so much going on around the city with signs over the existing signage, letting people know that these routes are going to be changing. The names of these routes are changing. There's going to be more buses coming to your stops more frequently, and there was a whole buzz in the city, and even here in the agency, that something big is about to happen. And from a customer standpoint, customers were like waiting to see what this is all about. Everywhere we went, every time I went out to cover stories, they wanted to know more. How is this going to affect me? Am I going to get here quicker? Well, then that's a good thing. And so they were so excited, and we were so excited to be a part of just covering this whole process of stories that are in this transformation that's been happening with the JTA.
This was really handled in such an organized, really inclusive way in terms of the community. You heard Mr. Ford talk about everything they went through. Wasn't that something that was interesting to cover? I mean, now you see all these national organizations coming forward and saying, boy, this could be a blueprint for how we handle things like this.
Absolutely, and when you say inclusive and making sure that everybody within the agency and the customers and everybody was involved in the process, it all started originally with the customers, finding out what their needs were. And then from that, it just grew, and then the agency, as we covered in our stories, were taking note of everything with all of the community meetings that they had and everything. They were very involved and very in tune to what customers were telling them, and that's what they did to try to make what this agency serve the customer in a fantastic and better way. So,
okay, so yeah. For Eugene, it's ROI. What about you, Carell?
Well, for me, it was a mix of a couple of things, because what ROI did led to Ronnie Brown, a person who has his own car and is a choice rider. And I think that was one of the big things for Mr. Ford, coming in and wanting to get Jacksonville residents to say, okay, I do have a car, but if I can travel on the buses and come downtown, I can save myself money on parking downtown, I can save myself money on gas, and definitely time. JTA has the campaign for distracted drivers, safety. Well, if you're on the bus, you can text and ride. So,
big plus.
Plus. So, all of these things work hand in hand, and I think the whole transformation is awesome. And going on for Choice Riders, First Coast Flyer, what an awesome service. I can't wait for everything to come into play, but that's who I think we're really trying to attract, the Choice Riders, getting you where you need to go faster, which is what people were saying, and then saying, there's an option. How do we get to the beach? How do I do all these things and get to ride public transit?
And Carell, when you talk about the choice riders and attracting choice riders, I was really impressed when the agency decided to get involved with the commuter tax benefit program.
Yes.
That was just another step with the agency getting involved with local employers to get their customers or their employees who actually use the service a way that they can have a tax benefit for using transit. And that's an even more savings there, and another reason to be a choice rider, if you will.
JTA is making those options available for not only businesses, but also for the residents, the customers, employees.
Well, let's bring Terry into the conversation. With most successful cities, you have successful public transit. So this was a big year. What resonated most with you?
I'd have to actually chime in, jump in the same water, route optimization. Mm-hmm. Except I would start at in many ways you did this, Eugene, the pre-ROI. I had an opportunity to cover the ROI in the planning stages and to talk to some of the folks within the JTA planning department about everything that was involved or going to be involved in this thing, and how meticulously it was being laid out, how carefully it was being planned. And yet there was a deadline when the lever was going to be pulled and it was going to be here. And I think it was in the month of December when it would be effective. And after a certain date, there would be no turning back. And you talked about the community meetings, and from that end of it, the input that the JTA sought and got. And that was important as far as the community is concerned, because it gave them a piece of this. They became part of something that they weren't really sure about in the beginning when just the warnings were coming out. And then there was the countdown. And what I saw on the day of, there were a few people here and there who said, well, you know, they told us it was going to be like this, but it would settle down. But most of the folks were a little anxious, and that's putting it mildly. But sure enough, in a very short time, they did settle down. And the transit riders and those who began to try it for the first time because it was new began to agree. That, to me, says a whole lot for everything that went into that initiative.
Well, for me, it was interesting because this was my first time riding public transit in Jacksonville. And so fresh eyes, a fresh look, and, you know, trying to navigate the routes. Where do we need to go? And it was quite exciting. Also, it was free for a week.
That's right.
And I happened to ride with a lady. She said that I'm just gonna take it, see where it takes me, because next week it's gonna be me and my daughter. And it was really great for her because school was out. And so I think kids were on Christmas break. And it just worked out perfectly for her to figure out what her route was, where she needed to go, and where do I get off, where do I get on. And so she and I were learning the routes at the same time. We were asking each other questions, so it was really funny. But for me, it was a great experience to be able to explore the city and figure out, how can I ride public transit? How can I become one of these choice riders?
Did you notice along the way how there were tables, and there were so many people at those tables on that first day who were there specifically to help and calm the passengers who didn't know where to go or even when? Boy, you talk about somebody who did a heck of a job. It was those people, and I think they got too little credit for that, but they were absolutely necessary, and a lot were volunteers, but a lot were also part of the JTA.
Yeah, I definitely saw that in Rosa Parks, Gateway, Regency,
yeah.
And then there were people that were close to Orange Park Mall. I think they had employees that were stationed at some of the hot or the most frequented areas that weren't necessarily a hub, but we knew there were going to be a lot of people at that stop. And so
we were glad they were there.
Yeah,
yes,
and that had to do a lot to calm the anxiety level of people who were not sure of what to do, where they were going, and how this whole change thing was working. Let's face it, anytime we're faced with change, you know, it's tough. It's some anxiety.
Nobody
there.
likes change.
I saw a photograph of one of our employees. They were wearing those blue shirts, so you knew who was helping out. And she was pointing at the sign. And when you look at the sign, our signs are new, and now it incorporates Next Bus. And I know you did a lot with Next Bus because that was the big rollout, figuring out real-time passenger. What was your experience with you know, riders really getting used to the opportunity to say, oh, I know where my next bus, where the next bus is, and when it'll get here?
I did a couple of stories about Next Bus, and that was the whole thing with, you know, transit meets technology kind of thing, you know, if you will. And, you know, people who have their smartphones and have their phones in their hand, they love that. I talked to people who were like, you know, I can do whatever I want to up until the last 5 minutes for me to go out and wait on the bus. I don't have to be, you know, at the stop and waiting and looking down the street and wondering. I can say, okay, it's there, it's 5 minutes away. I can pack my books up now. I can get running to the store, pick up a drink, and I'll be here when the bus gets here.
Just think of all the things that happened this year, and frankly, you know, it was a feast. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to do next year to top what happened this year, but Eugene, favorite moment of 2015?
I talked to a couple of business owners. I remember Anthony Ammons, who owns a business, Kentrice Jones, who talked about how much JTA had impacted their business by being involved in a program like the DBE program, which they got certified through the JTA. And I thought, wow, they really do a lot to help, everybody, small businesses, business owners, commuters. They're so involved in all areas of the community.
Yeah, that's a good one, Eugene. How about you, Carol?
There was a community shuttle that serviced the Brentwood area, and it changed. And when I say these residents, they were in uproar because they just loved the way that the shuttle was set up previously. And so they contacted Outreach, and Outreach came and met with them, and they said, well, what can we do to make it better? And a couple meetings went back and forth, and JTA listened and made the change and made something work not only for the shuttle that services more areas, but also for the Brentwood community. And I thought that was so important that for JTA to say, okay, we're changing these routes and we want to make everything more efficient, better service, more on time. But we also listen to you because we serve you, the community, and they made the change. They made it different, and they made it what they needed, and it was great to see that transformation.
Absolutely. Terry, how about you?
A visit to the JTA Lost and Found department, which sounds like it could be really, really boring. No way. There is so much stuff that people leave on buses. You won't believe it. You won't believe some of it.
That was a crazy story.
Most common things are bikes, purses, wallets, cell phones, most frequently left behind on the bus. Children. Well, no, not yet. That's in a totally different category. The next category we found in a safe when we were there doing the story: diamonds, jewelry, cash, important documents, passports, Jaguars tickets. Can you imagine that? Now we come to your children.
Not my children.
Yours, not yours. There's also the bizarre things that people leave on a bus. I don't know how anybody could get off a bus and leave behind an artificial leg or an artificial arm or any prosthetic, but prosthetics are left behind, and yes, the most bizarre, kids.
You can see though, like you said, you get on the bus and now you can do stuff, right? You sit your kid down, you're getting caught up in all your work, you get to your bus stop, you rush off, all of a sudden, Junior's on the next.
They did return the children, by the way, to the parents.
Well, that's good to hear.
They make honest-to-goodness efforts, dedicated efforts to return as much as they can to the owners.
Yeah, and they definitely don't want to keep the children, for sure. Okay.
At least you can
Terry,
use the next bus.
I totally agree. That was a very memorable story. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hope all of you enjoyed it too. That wraps up this special look back at the best of 2015. We thank you so much for joining us. As always, don't forget to like us on Facebook. I'm Donna Deegan for Nat Ford, Bill Milnes, and the entire Making Moves team. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. We're making moves.